Hey everyone, this is PhD sports scientist Dr. Will O'Connor, and you're listening to the Running with Dr. Will podcast, the show for runners who want to get faster using the latest in running science and technology. Running is going through a huge boom right now, and more runners than ever are looking to take their running to the next level. In the show, I break down the science and the tech so you can run faster with less effort. Let's go. Could high-intensity interval training be the secret to unlocking your next PB and increasing your stimulus and adaptation process from your training to unlock some pretty huge improvements in your fitness? I've seen it work amazingly with a lot of runners who are working, with families that they're fit in training in, and they're trying to get the most out of their limited, not just training time, but recovery time. So when we're looking at HIIT, we're not talking about some form of 4-minute fat burner, 3-minute ab kind of thing. Just to give a basic overview of high-intensity interval training. So these workouts consist of repeated bouts of high-intensity work that is performed above your lactate threshold, above the perceived effort of hard, or kind of 7, 8 out of 10, you're kind of 17, 18 out of 20 on the Borg RPE scale. So it's above your critical speed, critical power, velocity at VO2 max. And then the short bouts, and then they're interspersed by periods of low intensity exercise or complete rest. So saying under, just walking. If we're running, we do the hard bar, have a bit of a walk, or we just completely stop, wait for the next one. Right, so what HIIT has the benefit of doing is adding speed without adding much fatigue when compared to your traditional interval training. So what the research is showing, this is recent research by Almquist, I think it is, NW 2020, it's just a couple of years ago, is that when the participants completed 3 bouts of 13 times 30 seconds on, 15 seconds off, they increased their workout time above VO2 max by an average of 54% when compared to a traditional long interval workout, 4 by 5 minutes with 2.5 minutes recovery. So one of the number one differences that we see in terms of the amount of work or like muscular force that you're able to exert, the power output, speed that you're able to do across a set of intervals, of HIIT intervals, is that we have myoglobin. Okay, so you've probably heard of hemoglobin being the oxygen carrier within our blood. So we breathe in, there's a pressure gradient that allows that has hemoglobin have a higher affinity for oxygen than just the ambient air, I guess, in our lungs. So oxygen diffuses across our lungs into our bloodstream and because it has such a high affinity for hemoglobin then is in the blood, it's oxygen saturated now, and transports the oxygen around our body. At the working muscle or tissue, active tissue, whatever, we have myoglobin, which has an even higher affinity, and so the pressure gradient is negative, positive, whatever it is. It's like it's like a waterfall, right? Where you have the water is above the dam, and then when the dam opens up, it releases the water down a gradient, so down, which is like a gravitational gradient in that sense, where the water sits above a lower point, and so it travels down. The same kind of thing happens with a lot of molecules and compounds within our body, but specifically in this case, oxygen. So it travels from hemoglobin to the muscle-based myoglobin. So now we have myoglobin saturated with oxygen, and what research has found is that myoglobin can actually store a small amount of oxygen. So we're kind of in an oxygen positive state. And so by doing these small bouts of work, anywhere from, 15 seconds up to probably a couple of minutes, is then interspersing that with short bouts of recovery is that we can replenish our oxygen-based stores, which means despite the fact that we are working well above lactate threshold, we're able to utilize this oxygen-based buffer to minimize our reliance on our anaerobic-based energy pathway when compared to setting out for a 5-minute interval. For a lot of people, that that's kind of 1k to 1200 meters. So we're doing 1k intervals. Let's say you want to do 1k intervals at 5k pace. You quickly that oxygen-based buffer that we have stored within myoglobin is almost non-existent. It doesn't really matter because it may last. It may just minimize your anaerobic component by 15 to 30 seconds. That doesn't really matter when you're going to go for 3 to 6 minutes, but it does matter when you're only going for 30 seconds and then you're resting for 15 seconds. You're able to replenish that myoglobin. And so what that allows us to do across a bout of 13 times 30 seconds is it's going to allow us to work consistently in our work intervals much harder, much faster, more muscular force, more muscular work, so a faster speed, higher power output across the intervals for the same anaerobic or lactate-based response. So what does that mean? That means we're preserving glycogen, so we can probably do more work, anaerobic-based work, which is what we're seeing, right? A 54% increase on average of workout time above VO2 max. So this leads us to some of the benefits of improved functional speed, neuromuscular muscle recruitment-based pathways and patterns for deeper muscle recruitment, VO2 max improvements in terms of our ability to transport oxygen to working muscles and then utilize that oxygen, increase mitochondrial content because of the oxidative stress that occurs within the muscle, and a deeper level of muscle, minimize injury risk because we are minimizing the sustained muscular force or ground reactive forces when we are running at these speeds compared to going 5 minutes all out or 4 by 5 minutes. It improves the variety within training. It's not just your standard 5 by 1k 30-minute tempo and then long run, right? And the typically like that type, is it type 2 fun? What's the fun that's like post fun? And then it makes you feel like a pro, right? It does. It makes you feel cool when you have these kind of semi-complex workouts that are like scientifically designed to make you a better runner across the board, like physiologically, metabolically, neuromuscularly. So how does this happen? Like we know now using just basically the fundamental level of the myoglobin oxygen transportation system, how we could work above that, but how does it improve our overall fitness, physiology, conditioning, aerobic capacity? Well, so when researchers analysed the muscular and hormonal components and responses to HIIT training, they found that despite exercising at a higher physiological strain, so you are increasing at a large muscle mass, like a deep muscle recruitment of inefficient, like type 2X based muscle fibers. So the physiological strain is there at really high loads of like fuel utilization as well, because you're still working really hard across a large duration of time. So despite working at higher physiological strain, there was a similar acute muscle response to long intervals. So what this is kind of saying that the acute muscular response, when we're looking at mRNA, so like the messenger ribonucleic acid, which is what signals for the synthesis of the things like the mitochondria, glycolytic enzymes, the actual muscle proteins and rebuilding themselves, that was similar to the long intervals and the short intervals. So we're getting the same physiological response, but when we look at the blood levels of testosterone and cortisol, they were higher in HIIT. So what that means is, I guess structurally, we're implementing the same damage and repair process structurally, even though we're running at far greater speeds, 54% more time above VO2 max. But then we're inducing a higher level of actually systemic hormonal stress. So that's testosterone and cortisol are higher in HIIT. And what that may do is increase training adaptations contributing to greater performances, which they have showed after a bout of weeks of training of HIIT. But while that is like all amazing, we're minimizing our structural stress despite running way faster when compared to these intervals. Everything has its time and its place, but we still have a really large systemic stress, a greater systemic stress than if we're doing like our 5x1k session. So there's a trade-off, because you can't not do 5x1k or 3x3k if you're building up for a 10k, because you have to run 10k's hard. But then we're HIIT training, where I really see HIIT training being a great benefactor in improving performance and fitness, is typically around a base phase and ultramarathon build-up. So it minimizes, especially when depends on time restriction as well, and injury, how prone you are to injury. When you're in the base phase of the ultramarathon, your goal is to operate at the highest possible aerobic capacity. So it's just to improve your aerobic capacity, your fat max, maximal fat oxidation rates, the pace, powers outputs, energetic output that you can sustain without even needing to rely on carbohydrates whatsoever, because they're finite, they're limiting, and that's not the goal of an ultramarathon. Ultramarathons to be as metabolically efficient as possible. But to do that and just rely on zone 1, zone 2, consistent long running, you are not gaining the most effective stimulus, and you are limiting your neuromuscular muscle recruitment patterns, and so you can become less economical as a runner. And so where I've seen HIIT training work really well in implementing HIIT workouts is within an ultramarathon and base phase. So you minimize your chance of staleness by creating a diverse physiological and neuromuscular strain. So you're not overloading your muscular stress, which you don't want to do in a base phase or an ultramarathon build-up, because you have in a base phase, you're just trying to build aerobic fitness to build the base level, so that when you're ready for your next targeted event-specific block, you're good to go. Ultramarathon, you're going to be running 5 hours plus at the weekends, or depending on how you're structured your week. So you don't want to try and run a fast 10k or marathon within that build up, because that's just loading way too much stress onto the system. And so these HIIT workouts are going to work really well. Whereas when you're trying to build up for a 5k or a 10k, implementing HIIT is kind of like, where does it sit within your plan? Because it's not really elevating your anaerobic threshold, which is absolutely necessary for a 10k race. Similarly, it's not really targeting your speed, because you're doing so many repeated bouts that you're not targeting out and out speed where you were if you're doing a 400 long recovery. And then it does, I guess, target anaerobic tolerance, but you're not working at as higher rates. So again, it's all about time and place. But where I see it working really well is when you're building up for these longer events, you're time limited. You're not using these as a replacement for your easy aerobic, zone 1, zone 2 runs, but you are going to implement them as a targeted quality-based session that is going to improve your overall metabolic, physiological, neuromuscular, and running economy and efficiency to be a better long-term, long-distance runner. So what you can do, here's how to implement it. So you can do a 2x session, so 2x15 times 30 seconds at 5k race pace, 1 minute easy. Or you can do, and then what you'd want to do is progress that. Depends on how you feel, how hard and challenging that is, how much speed work, how much high intensity work you've done. You can go 15. So initially you're starting off 15, 5 seconds at 5k pace, or just, like 8 out of 10. 1 minute easy, and then you progress, you start to minimize the rest. So you do 15 times 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off, and then 15, 30 seconds on, 15 seconds off. Do 2 of those, 5 minutes between. Like, it's a great session, great way to smash out, 45 minutes worth of running without even really noticing it. They are challenging. Systemic stress is there. They're not a replacement. You can't do them for your aerobic runs. You can't do them every day, but they are really going to improve your overall physiological endurance capacity. So throw those in. Try it out. Try that workout out. Check out my blog about HIIT training and implementing HIIT training. And look, if you want to transform your training from just your standard, unstructured, long, slow runs to a structured race day ready training plan with some variety, flexibility, just steal my 6-step formula to running massive PBs. It's free. Links in the bio, links everywhere on all of my socials. Thanks. Happy running. Dr. Will O'Connor. Hey teams, thanks for listening. If you're looking to get more tips, tricks, and advice from me, make sure you follow me on Instagram at Dr. Will O'Connor and share, like, review, give some stars for the episode. It really helps me get the word out, and I hugely appreciate it. If you do so, give me a tag on Instagram and I'll be sure to share you in my stories and reach out via the DMs. Alright, till next time guys, have a good one.